Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And the Cyberpunk 2077 drama continues.
Oh boy.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. Cyberpunk has been released, of course. We've been talking about it and talking about the salty game journalists. But there's a lot of salt about this game on Twitter too, because for some reason, Twitter seems to think this game is for white supremacists by white supremacists, not realizing that the creator of Cyberpunk is a black man.
Right. This is kind of like what we saw with She-Ra, that if you didn't like it, it was because you were an Islamophobe. Or with Star Wars, if you called anything out about it, even valid reasons, it was because you were an Islamophobe. Because Twitter, as much as they go on about other people being Islamophobes, are the most narrow-minded Islamophobes I've ever seen in my life.
They are a bunch of twidiots.
Yeah, they're twidiots. There's another word for our thing. We got
lexicon,
we got
twidiots.
Screeing. What was it? Screeing? Scree. What was the other we had from yesterday? I don't remember what it was.
Rebake.
Rebake, and now we have
twidiots.
Twidiots.
Because Twitter loves to educate people with wrong information, and then they complain about other people, having the wrong information. But they often have the wrong information. And a basic Google search would show you who created Cyberpunk.
Oh, come on, that's too hard. Journalists today just listen to what Reddit tells them and Twitter tells them, and they post it on the internet because that makes it news. It makes it true because they heard it on Twitter.
God, so we're going to talk about this because I thought this had been put the rest last year because a couple of news outlets were attacking Cyberpunk as being a fantasy for white supremacists, and including Rock Paper Shotgun. They were talking about all the racism, the anti-black racism in Cyberpunk. And I thought it was put to bed. And now it's come up again on Twitter because apparently Twitter, again, doesn't know how to Google. Mike Pondsmith, black guy who created Cyberpunk, very smart guy. I'm actually going to pull up some of his interviews. And he doesn't like being used as a shield.
Yeah, like a lot of minorities don't like being used as a damn shield on Twitter.
Yeah, so he is very intelligent. We're going to talk about this. Before we get into it, guys, please give us a sub if you haven't done so already. We're at almost 160,000. We might cross that, but thank you. Hoping for 200,000 soon. And check out our pins. You've got 7 days to pre-order the Kneon in 10 hours. 7 days, 10 hours to pre-order the Kneon and Geeky pin set. And when it's gone, it's gone. I don't know how many, if any, are going to be left after they ship them out. But if you want to get it, it's almost $20, and you can check some other stuff out in our shop. I'm going to put a link to that in the comments. I'm going to pin it. So there you go. We're going to pin the pins. So yeah, I was looking into this today because Honey Mutant Candle Squid was talking about it. I'm like, this is old news. No, it turns out it's not old news. There are people out there that still think that Mike Pondsmith is a white supremacist white guy.
Well, okay. How many of you that are our followers, because I know several of you have pointed out to me, have been called white supremacists, misogynists, whatever, Islamophobes, labeled things, and because they don't know you personally, and they're calling you white supremacist when you're not white, or they're calling you misogynist when you're not male, or they're calling you a straight white man when you're none of those things, or you're only one of those things, or whatever. How many of you out there have had this happen to you? I know it's a lot of you, because a lot of you have posted about it.
Yes, there are an awful lot of white supremacists who aren't white.
I got told I was a misogynist. I was an internalized misogynist because I didn't like the new Star Wars films. And that's what their go-to is. Their go-to is they're going to tell you that you're these things when you point out you're not these things. Oh, you're internalized. Because they either marginalize you completely and ignore you and step over your arguments because they know that you're these things and that they don't want to listen to you. Or because you don't have the right narrative. Or they come out and tell you that you are all these bad things even when you clearly aren't, because they're going to double down on it because they're dumbasses. And the only way they know how to handle any kind of, criticism at all is to ridicule, belittle, and label people because they don't want to actually have to listen to an argument and discuss it. It's easier to belittle you, to step over you and, move on. So that's what I think is happening here. It happened to me. It's happened to many of you.
Yeah, and it's happening to Mike Pondsmith, and it has been for years now. And this is why I think he's getting really tired of it. And I'm going to pull up some quotes from some interviews he was doing last year because they were attacking Cyberpunk last year for being a racist game. This year's flavor is it's transphobic. So yeah, just read a tweet of someone accusing Pondsmith, the creator of Cyberpunk, of being a white supremacist. This is Mike Pondsmith, right? These are the tweets. We're going to read some of these comments because they're comedy gold.
They're beautiful.
Just keeps getting funnier every time. Bringing it back one more time. Known white supremacist, Mike Pondsmith, coming from this person. Imagine ascribing the creation of an entire genre to one narrow-minded white man. How embarrassing.
You know what? Speaking of being embarrassing, let's talk about all the sexist, racist, hate people on Twitter, like this person who go around just, labeling everyone and assuming everything about them. Because that's the only way their little mind can wrap around the idea that people might have different ideas than they do. How sad for you. That's more sad, I think, actually.
All right, this one's from Sunshine. What a ray of
Wait, is it the same Sunshine from the video?
There's a video out there with Sunshine. From Sunshine.
I think it's a different Sunshine, but yes.
Since Cyberpunk 2077 can't shut the fuck up, I'll give you some confirmed details. In the demo, you fight not one but two gangs of black people. One of the Haitians called the Voodoo Boys, one of the people obsessed with juice called the Animals. In the demo, you brutally massacre a load of black people in a hail of blood and bullets. It's actually disgusting. It's a white supremacist fantasy come to life. It's completely and utterly horrible.
Remember when PETA had a hissy fit because it said that you had to kill things on Animal Crossing when you don't?
Oh yeah, it's like they didn't actually play the game.
Yeah.
It's the most vile thing I've ever had the displeasure of witnessing.
Have you been on Twitter?
Yeah, right. Oh, and this one too, because they had a car that looked like the General Lee. We can't do that.
Maybe he just liked Dukes of Hazzard.
Maybe he just liked the Dukes of Hazzard.
Maybe it's a pop culture reference because he knows people might get it.
Believe it or not, there was a time when people really didn't think of the Dukes of Hazzard as being a racist show. Mm-hmm. It's only been the last 5 or 6 years, I think, that became controversial because of the flag on top of the car.
What's hilarious to me is they keep acting like, all the decades of supremacy and how it's just now being changed. Back in the 80s, most of the hit television shows were black-centric shows.
Yeah.
And everybody watched them and everybody loved them and no one thought anything of it.
Cosby.
Yeah, there was lots of them,
know, right?
Family Matters, daughter was watching Sister the other day. That's more like the 90s. But you know what I'm saying? It was, it was all kinds of shows. There was a bunch of them. I mean, and no one thought anything of it.
Yes, but everything's problematic.
Right, they just invented diversity.
Cyberpunk 2077 features a futuristic version of the General Lee. Though the Cyberpunk version of the vehicle has removed the Confederate symbols, people are now accusing the game's creator, Mike Pondsmith, of promoting racism. What do we tell them? Do we tell them?
Yeah, I know. It's hilarious. It's just they're so stupid. And like I said, you kept seeing this with She-Ra and Star Wars.
Oh my God. So yeah. So here's another one. So the comment section under the rock, paper, shotgun hit piece had some assholes repeatedly telling everyone that Mike Pondsmith was involved at some point. He's definitely not heavily involved anymore because he'd never sign off on something as racist as a gang called Animals. Actually, he did. And we'll talk about that. CDPR deviated from the 2020 canon horribly and inexcusably in their portrayal. So basically what's going on here is they're like, well, okay, so you got us. Cyberpunk was created by a black guy, but he wasn't really involved in the game when, as I understand it, he was involved heavily in the game.
And he's on a record telling these people to shut the hell up and stop, telling them what to think or say.
Yeah. So this is crazy. And this goes back to, again, Rock, Paper, Shotgun, a video game news site. The founder of the site, a white guy, was attacking Mike Pondsmith. Yeah, they took the tweet down. Was attacking Mike Pondsmith's comments, defending his creation. Essentially, a white guy is trying to explain to the black creator why him naming a faction Animals is racist against black people.
Yeah.
So we have a white guy telling a black guy who's been doing this for decades, by the way. Cyberpunk came out in the 80s.
Well, what gets me about Twitter is that they keep going on about how they're going out there, they're social justice people, they're going out there, they're going to stand up for all these minorities and everything else. But they are the most racist, sexist group of people I've ever seen. They use people as a shield. They're not actually standing up for them. They're just using them as a stepping stool to get themselves more likes and views. They don't really give a flying fuck about what happens to these people. They're just using people to try to get themselves more attention. And a lot of times they're out there, labeling people that aren't even, that are the people they're supposed to be, standing up for. And it happens all the damn time. We saw it with, what's her name? Shuri, Letitia.
Oh, Letitia Wright. Yeah. It's your a poor minority that needs to be defended by white liberals.
By that, uses you as a shield.
Yeah, until you say the wrong thing. Look at what happened to Letitia Wright. Look at what's happened to Rosario Dawson.
Yeah, we're seeing, like I said, many times I mentioned him and said again, like She-Ra in Star Wars. How many people came out and said that, brought up valid points and said they didn't like something and they're immediately accused of racism, sexism, all this other stuff when they themselves were diverse and they just didn't want to hear it. So they quickly just accused them of being whatever, the buzzword of the day is.
Yeah, so, this is last year's story, but again, because the game is out now, the game is selling like gangbusters, despite the problems with the console versions, which I'm not going to say the console versions don't have problems. Mm-hmm. But the game is out, it's selling like crazy, and now it's time to reignite a lot of these grievances, that these, that Twitter and some of these journalists have had. And, they're not even listening to Mike Pondsmith. So we had Rock, Paper, Shotgun last year saying, well, we had a couple people saying, well, one, it's very racist of them, but maybe Mike Pondsmith didn't know. Maybe he wasn't involved. Maybe those racists over at CD Projekt Red, maybe they just took his idea and golly, they just went on.
Obviously, if it wasn't the way they thought, it had to be, straight white men.
Yeah.
Because frankly, that's what they blame it on. And meanwhile, the ones who are being the most narrow-minded bigots are these people that are yelling straight white men all the time.
So this is his answer, because they tried to play it down like, well, I think just the straight white men took Mike Pondsmith's game and they did white supremacist things to it. They made it racist. This is what he said.
Twitter is racist.
He's not involved anymore. If I wasn't heavily involved, this is coming from Mike Pondsmith, I would be able to get more done. As it is, I barely have a life.
I understand.
Number 2, as for the animals, that's the gang. The whole freaking point is that they think of themselves as powerful, dangerous, wild animals. You'd have thought the lady named Sasquatch would have given them a clue. Number 3, the original Voodoo Boys were a scathing commentary on cultural appropriation. I love the idea that real practitioners of voodoo moved on and took back their turf. I guess the original was a bunch of white people pretending to be like voodoo guys. They even got the Creole right. Who the bleep do you think you are to tell me whether or not my creation was done right or not?
Yes, thank you. We didn't even plan that. We just both simultaneously did that.
We did, because it's worth clapping for. And this is what's going on. We see this all the time. And we're seeing marginalized people get marginalized even more, right, because they're not thinking or saying or doing the things that basically a bunch of elitist white liberals think they should.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. For all these people yelling about racism, Islamophobe, being against trans people, being against, you're racist, you're homophobic, you're whatever. These people are the most sexist, racist, troll-like people I've ever seen in my life. And if you don't subscribe to their narrative, if you're not, they don't think you're that big of a threat, they just step over you completely and ignore you, marginalize you again. The white people don't have to listen to you. Or 2, they turn around, if you're a bigger person like him, they turn around and try to use it as I'm gonna say you're obviously a white racist, whatever, because clearly you have to be. And if you don't think yourself, then you are internalized.
You're internalized. You wish you were white, I guess. I mean, and the funny thing is, the Cyberpunk's been incredibly successful in tabletop gaming for decades. Nobody ever thought not until 2019, 2020. Now it's time to question the creator of the game. Because how dare you? I laugh,
though. Every time I hear Cyberpunk, I think of the neckbeard over at the game shop.
Oh my God. Okay, so funny story.
This isn't about racism. This is about arrogance, and this is kind of like that whole they have to quiz you to see if you're a geek enough to participate.
All right, so funny story. Not going to name the gaming store because they do a really good job.
And it's not them. It was somebody coming in to play. It wasn't them.
It was a group, and they had and a friend of ours said, hey, you guys are looking, you guys being me and Squid King.
Yes, this is guys towards guys, surprise. It's not men towards women, as they always say it is.
Guy on guy action. Actually, there was a girl there, and she was giving us a stink eye, too. So we were looking to join a group, and they were playing Cyberpunk, and I'm like, oh, cool. I haven't played in freaking forever. I used to play Vampire the Masquerade back in the day, too. And I'm like, okay, so, we'll check it out, and I'll get Squid King, because he's been looking for a group for a while now. We can't find anybody around here to play. Well, shutdown doesn't help. So we go, and the friend of ours wasn't there yet, and the guy running the game was like, get 20 questions. Do you even know what Cyberpunk is? Not Cyberpunk the game, but the genre.
No, I don't. I'm that stupid.
No, I have no idea. No, I don't know anything about it. Could you give me some examples of the Cyberpunk genre?
You're lucky I wasn't there.
But yeah, so this was, Squid King, he was mortified. He was like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, this is, that didn't go well. So we're like, yeah, it looks like you're full. We're not interested.
They were complete assholes. So if I had been there, there would have been I'd been like, oh, hell no.
Anyway, that is a side story. Has nothing to do with the Cyberpunk.
But it reminds me because,
the gatekeeping kind of element, Anyway, so this is an interview from in the middle of the summer with Mike Pondsmith talking about politics. Mm-hmm. Because there were people, I remember, they were pressing him. And he did give a BLM statement. But what he said was that he has friends in law enforcement. And he has been pulled over before and stuff like that. And he's not trying to minimize anything, but he's like, look, this is really complicated. It's not as black and white, no pun intended, as people were trying to make it out to be. He actually had a pretty good statement. I read his statement. So he did give a statement. They were looking for a different statement. I think
it wasn't the one they wanted. So obviously he's some kind of istinophobe.
It was a very nuanced, well thought out, as are most things that he says, a very well thought out explanation of where he's coming from.
How dare he doesn't just get triggered and say whatever.
Yeah, again, as an individual, you're not allowed to have individual thought anymore. You have to go with the group. So he's talking about politics and games. And he says, along with that, I've also said, if you want somebody to see your point of view, you really have to stop preaching. When you preach at people and they don't find it out themselves, what happens is invariably they shut down because you're now threatening what they see. You're saying, you're wrong and my way is right. You may not be right or only partially right, and that's when you need to be able to talk to other people and find out what's right for a lot of people. If you preach, you don't get there. Mm-hmm. You're basically just giving your side of the statement, and it never seems to work that way. What I believe, you're not allowed to believe your own beliefs there, Mike. What I believe is that the way to do politics in games is it should be something that occurs in the game, but doesn't necessarily have a visible agenda.
Amen!
At no point does anybody in Cyberpunk come up to you and go, you should follow this belief structure. What they're saying is, there's this situation here. This is not a world designed to promote your life and livelihood and your friends and your neighborhoods and anything that you care about. He's basically saying, here's the situation. You follow your own moral compass. But if somebody comes up to you and is combative, mm-hmm. and we see this in, and again, I always talk about, people who are obsessed with politics, it being like a religion. Because immediately somebody comes up to you and starts spouting off religious stuff to you, your immediate reaction is, hell no, stop, just stop. You're in my space, and that's it. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do it.
It's like we keep seeing all the time with a lot of these cartoons and stuff and like Star Wars and that. If you don't like it, it wasn't because you might have a valid argument or a valid reason. It was immediately because you were labeled, you were, marginalized, and you were called all kinds of hateful names. And then they wonder why people wouldn't work together. And why it splits fandoms and everything else, because people were like, what the hell? And who the hell taught these people, Twitter, obviously, that this is an appropriate way to behave?
It's not an appropriate way to behave. It doesn't help anybody. And, we see this in fandoms. And I had a conversation with somebody the other day about this very topic, that fandoms used to bring people together from different walks of life, different races, mm-hmm. different religions, different sexual identities, whatever. Everybody used to sit down and they would geek out about the same things. And there'd be arguments, or always have been arguments about, comic books and Star Wars and whatever. But it hasn't been used as a blunt political instrument until recently. And we've had politics in pop culture for years. I mean, look at Star Trek. Look at Star Trek then, which was kind of what Mike Pondsmith is talking about, where there was, a political undertone to it, but you were allowed to make up your own mind. Whereas now they just, like with Discovery, so they just smack you upside the head. Doctor Who.
If you don't, this is the only way to think. And if you don't think the way we think, then you obviously are the problem. You're the hater. You're the ist. You're the phobe. That is the issue right there. Your behavior is 90% of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the fact that they've actually gotten so far as to call a prominent black creator in the RPG world a white supremacist.
I love it. We need more representation. We need more black creators. You have one. Well, they're not the same opinion as me, so they don't count.
That's basically what you're saying. And this is the same with, I think, Letitia Wright and Rosario Dawson. We want black creators that agree with us, not those black creators. Right.
Yeah, it's like, we want more representation. You get it. Well, that's not the one I wanted. They don't think of 100% like I do. This is just
freaking sad. This is why stay the fuck off of Twitter. Just stay off of Twitter. No good.
And Reddit too, I'd say.
Yeah, they're just. I mean, clearly this shows the lack of education, the lack of even due diligence,
lack of professional integrity.
You didn't even do the basic research to find out who made the game, and you're gonna attack because they just assume everything I don't like was made by white people. Mm-hmm. White men. Straight white men made everything I don't like.
And if someone doesn't agree with your opinion, it's obviously because they're straight, white, and male. There's some ist and phobe. It's not and a lot of people who are calling these names are actually the people that they're claiming they're supporting. Yeah. Like I said, they're the most bigoted, narrow-minded trolls I've ever seen. And then they're out there yelling about everybody else being bigoted and narrow-minded when they themselves are the ones who are stereotyping everyone, labeling everyone, making assumptions about everyone without even knowing what's going on. They're the ones that are doing it the most, but yelling about everybody else being the bad people.
Project and deflect.
That's it.
All right, so Twidiots. And there we go, guys. There's today's Cyberpunk story. It never ends. We're going to wrap it up?
Yep.
Okay, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, and we will talk to you guys later.
Bye.